Paul, the writer of most of the New Testament, was single as a Pringle, and he was not looking to mingle.
You should have ended
You
that.
already
with,
look disappointed in me, Ben.
Yeah, because you should have ended that with, and now here's the jingle.
Oh, no. It's too much. That would be too much.
Welcome to another episode of Cross Checking. I'm Pastor Ben Olschlager up here in Lake Orion, Michigan. With me again, as always, Pastor Josh Laboria in Friendswood, Texas. Just changed.
It's rodeo season, y'all.
He just changed our descriptions if you're watching the video. So,
I did.
We are continuing on our season on discipleship, and today we are looking at being disciples as a single individual, a single adult. Josh, I don't know about you, but like growing up Christian, growing up in Lutheran schools, going to Christian conferences and that kind of thing, like there was a lot of like, hey, one of the best parts about being an adult is getting married.
Yeah.
And like, I think we were kind of discipled into marriage and to an unhealthy degree.
Yeah, I think two things can be true at the same time. One is that marriage and family is undoubtedly a gift from God. It's something that is good and it is worth encouraging in people, and it's something to lift up and it's something to talk about. And at the same time, we almost idol, like in some places it is almost to the point, and some places it crosses the line into idolatry of, like, if the most important thing about you is your potential to get married and or have kids, like that's idolatry, because the most important thing about you is in fact that Christ died for you. And I think especially as you're younger, there's so much of a pressure on find a spouse, get married. And then on the flip side, if you are an adult who isn't, it becomes something that, like,
it's like a check against you.
Yeah, even if it's not intentional, it feels like it's kind of, it feels like it can feel like you're a second-class citizen. And you're not. In fact, if you look at the New Testament, especially if you look at Paul's writing, singleness is lifted up as a blessing and a virtue. So we're here to set the record straight as two married guys who were both single when we got to the seminary, which is not necessarily the norm. Well, single as in not married. Yeah. I was single. Ben was dating someone who he would eventually marry. Hi, Krista. Shout out, Krista. Can't believe she puts up with you.
Sometimes I can't either.
I hope you don't take one aside before we get into it.
Sure. Go ahead.
So we are starting to talk about the idea of calling an associate pastor. We have a voters meeting at the end of the month. If it is clear, if the budget is cleared if the spending plan is cleared by the voters, we will start the search for an associate pastor. And in that, I've had a couple people come up to me and you say, "What about Ben?" And my response is, oh no, that's a bad idea. One of us would probably kill the other one.
Josh and I's relationship in terms of running a church would be like this podcast works because we are two nuclear fuel rods safely kept apart by...
There's a lead lining here.
In a buffer and all sorts of good things happening.
And we worked So Ben and I have worked together previously. We worked at tech services at the seminary together. And we worked very well, but that's because our approach to technology is very similar. Both of our approaches to ministry work, and they're good, they're fine, but they're not the same. And both Ben and I are very headstrong people.
Yeah.
So it would probably cause some problems.
If you want to watch two bull moose lock horns, that would be putting Josh and I on the same leadership team.
Yeah. Generally, like in specific areas, we are very closely aligned. So there are different places we could serve together.
Yeah.
But just the general leadership of a church is probably not one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's accurate.
Although, putting me in a position of authority over Ben, that could be fun for me.
I mean, I've thought about what it would look like to have you as an associate, and it wasn't pretty either. So, yeah.
Oh, there would definitely be some malicious compliance if that was the case.
Yeah. Anyway, and also, like, the call process is the call process. You need to figure out who God is leading you to call. And you got to figure out who God is truly calling to be there.
Yeah.
And like, I'm at a stage in my ministry, and I don't know about you, Josh, but like, I'm at a stage in my ministry where I feel pretty strongly called to the place I am. And like, it would take, what's a good example of God?
The Holy Spirit hitting you over the head with a 2x4. That's the phrase.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how my vicarage senior pastor talked about his. He's like, you're always open to a call. Like, that's the reality, because the Holy Spirit can come knocking whenever he wants. But the way he would phrase it is, the Holy Spirit would have to knock me over the head with a 2x4 and show me, like, this is definitely, you need to be somewhere else. So
yeah, I was gonna say my dog started talking like Balaam's donkey. Like,
yeah, if my dog started talking, I'd
see that as
I would be like, oh,
yeah. So like,
now if a snake starts talking to you, that's the other direction.
Yeah, don't listen to that one. We do
don't
occasionally have
listen
snakes in
to
the
the
building
snake.
up here. So that's the thing.
In any case, back to singleness.
Yeah. I mean, we're both guys who've been single at one point in our life, and I kind of planned on going into seminary single before. And I think this is maybe something that is worth us kind of thinking about. I became much healthier and I think more attractive as an adult when I gave up on trying to be in a relationship and just focused on being, at that point, the college student that God called me to be. Right?
Yeah.
And I think, and I'm not saying this to say like the point of being single is to make yourself more attractive, but I think like we are best as a single adult when we stop trying super hard to be in a relationship. Like, if your identity is trying to be in a relationship as a single adult, you've lost the plot a little bit, or a lot of it.
However,
you've lost a big part of the identity that God has for you.
Yeah, well, and it shouldn't be the word I use. I get where it comes from, because if there's a constant pressure to, you need to be in a relationship, you need to get married. I understand why you're like, well, obviously this should be a preeminent concern. But this is something, as a single guy, I hated hearing this. That doesn't make it any less true. The second when I really stopped looking is when I met Chris, who is, for anyone who's missed this, who's now my wife. And I think part of that is because our relationships should not be idols. So it also tracks like theologically, where if you are praying to God for a faithful spouse, but you are consumed by the pursuit of that, he may be holding off because it would so quickly become an idol for you. So once you take that step back and kind of learn that this is not the be all end all, that God's like, okay, this isn't going to become an idol anymore. And then he blesses you in that way. So if you are single and you're in that place, whether you want to remain single or not, I'm not saying you have to, not pursue relationships. I mean, when I started dating Chris, it didn't just like magically happen. Like I did reach out and we talked and like there was initiative there, but it wasn't like I was looking. Like there's a joke at the seminary. I don't know if you were here for this particular Follies, Ben, but there was the Follies. It's something the seminary does, or I assume they still do it once a year. It's like a bunch of seminarians. They'll do like a comedy sketch, or like you'll get guys who do skits or parodies or spoofs or whatever. There's a great video with a seminarian rapping about Dr. Okamoto's red shoes.
It's kind of like the seminary equivalent of the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Sure. I've never actually watched one of those, but I did recently come across the fact that Obama had Key and Peele come up and be an anger translator during one, which high quality video series there. But one of them, it was a bunch of, I forget what the actual point was. There were a couple single guys, a couple married guys sitting on stage, and a girl walks by, and the single guys, they aren't looking, but the married guy's like, oh, one of you guys should go like talk to her. And all the single guys are like, nope, married. And he's like, how do you know? Ring. How did you see that? You didn't even look up. There was a ring. Like if you are that in tune to like all of the women around you or all of the guys around you, like it's probably encroaching on that idolatry. If the first evaluation you have when you meet someone is, could I potentially date and or marry this person? Like that's, calm down.
Yeah.
Calm down. Really, because not for any of the other reasons, but first and foremost, like your identity is not in who your relationship was with. Your identity is in Christ. And we can't let, just like anything else, we can't let even these good things become idols for us. So
there's an episode of Futurama where I think it's Kif, can't remember the name of the dorky, like thinks he's cool but he's really not, captain guy.
It's that Brannigan.
Thank you. And Fry get stuck on a planet full of Amazonian women, and like if your life looks too close to the plot of that episode of Futurama, where like the Amazonian women are desperate for male companionship because that just doesn't exist on their planet because they killed them all. I mean that's how it worked. Like just slow down, pump the brakes. Your salvation is not found in having a relationship.
Well, and even less extreme than that, like your value as a person, your value as a member of a congregation, like what we want, if you are a single person listening to this, and if you're a married person listening to this and you have a single person in your life, first of all, take the lesson, chill out. Like ask them about other things than any burgeoning relationships they might have. Also send this to them. If you're single
and ready to,
that's okay. Like that's what we want you to take away from this is like your sole purpose in life isn't just to find a Christian spouse. Is it good? Is that a blessing? Yeah, but what we want you to hear is two pastors saying it is okay to be single as long as you want to be, as long as God wants you to be. Like you are not somehow deficient because you don't have a significant other, because you don't have a spouse. That's like, that has been the point of this first session, other than the divergence into how Ben and I work together.
I think like maybe a bit of a history lesson here is worth bringing up. So you mentioned Paul earlier, right? Famously single theologian, apostle, evangelist, prolific writer, um, one of, if not the most influential theologian that the church has known that isn't named Jesus Christ of Nazareth, right? Um, full stop. Single dude, right? And his whole point was like, I'm single because it allows me to devote myself fully to the ministry. And that's my life. That is the life that God has called me into. He recognizes. So, this is from 1 Corinthians 7. To the unmarried and the widows, I say that it is good for them to remain single, as I am. Period. Stop. Like, that is a good stage of life that God has given them. Enjoy it, embrace it. Paul used it for all sorts of great, like, one of the reasons that Paul, I think, was so comfortable going to his death in Rome was that he didn't have a wife and or kids that he was going to leave behind fatherless because he was willing to step out for his faith. And I think that's an incredibly considerate thing from him in terms of how his ministry played out. Jump forward about 1,500 years. Got this other theologian, prolific writer, noted lover of wine more than beer, but people give him too much credit for his beer loving. Also really, really quick with an insult. Martin Luther spent a good chunk of his life single. Like, most of the most influential acts that he did, not his writing necessarily, but a lot of the things that like set him out as a significant figure in history happened while he was single. Posting in the 95 Theses. He was still a monk. Definitely single.
Kind of like a requirement.
Yeah, very much so a requirement. Diet of Worms. When he stands up and says, "Here I stand, I can do no other," right? Still a monk, very single. Not a thought in his mind. Then he spends a few years at Wartburg Castle translating the Bible into German as a single dude. Leaves there, continues preaching, teaching, leading, contributes to the writing of the Augsburg Confession. I know Melanchthon wrote it, but like heavily influenced Melanchthon's writing there. Single dude. Only after all of that happens does he eventually literally get pressured into getting married by his future wife, Katie. Because somebody, she was insistent because she thought he was a good dude. And B, somebody pointed out to Martin at some point along the way that, like, you say that priests can get married and then you don't. So I think a lot of people don't believe you when you say that that's a reality for people. So maybe you should like slow down, and you've got this woman that's very, very interested in you. Like, let this happen. So Luther reluctantly married, at least at first, then had a bunch of kids. But like a lot of the influential things he did because he was able to do because he was single. In part, that was what the church mandated at the time, as Josh mentioned earlier, but like also probably would have been a different reality if he had been married.
Yeah. So all of that brings us to, what does it look like to be a disciple as a single adult? And the reality is it's not that much different from like everybody else. Be in worship, be in a small group, do do your devotions, do your readings. Like, these are all good things. These are all blessings. This is how you grow as a disciple. Serve. And this is one of the places where, like Ben was talking about, this is a priority Paul put on things. Like, you as a single person you have a lot of flexibility that someone with a family might not. And that's another place where the church sometimes makes, like, don't get burned out by that, right? You are still allowed to say no. Like, you have stuff to do. Don't burn out as a volunteer, but it gives you the freedom to serve in different ways and to serve maybe more unreservedly. I had a friend who was a pastor, and he married, kids, but he expressed a couple times, he's like, you know what? I get what Paul was saying. Because here's the thing. If you have a wife and children and you are a pastor and you work 70 hours in a week, like, you should feel bad about that. Especially if it's just a regular thing. If it, I mean, like, Holy Week is a little bit of an exception. Things like that.
Christmas.
Right. But if you're a single guy, this was his point. He's like, if you're a single guy, I could spend 70 hours a week at the office and it's not going to bother anybody. And you have the freedom to serve in that way.
Josh,
I'm not advocating
for priestly celibacy.
What?
Are you arguing for priestly celibacy?
No, I am not. Like, as a single person, you have that opportunity where you can go and exercise your discipleship with an incredible amount of freedom. If you want to go serve. So that's what it looks like to be a disciple. Is you're in this as a single adult, not necessarily a young adult. You have a lot of freedom, and you can use that freedom, as we should all use any freedom we have, to serve Christ, to grow closer to him, to learn more about him. So what does it look like for you to be a disciple? Go be a disciple. Do the things Jesus put in front of you to do. Take advantage of the flexibility and the freedom you have to serve. And there you go.
Yeah, I think it's impressive to, like, so personal anecdote here, or like story time. Somewhere between the two. We have an 8-member church council, right? And unless I'm counting wrong,
which is entirely possible,
until last November, when one of the 2 single members had to step off, we had 25% of our council that were single adults. Because they had the time. They had the flexibility and the freedom to step up and serve. And I appreciated that. And they were great members of one still is a great member of our church council. But both of them were great members of our church council. I don't know if they would have been able to do that, like, with family. We have plenty of people that serve that have family. But I just know it's a lot, like, if it feels a lot easier as a pastor also when somebody doesn't have, like, a 3-month-old at home, to ask them, hey, are you interested in serving in this way? Because at least in a healthy pastoral understanding of your people, you're running through the vocations that a person has in your mind as you're thinking about whether or not they'd be a good fit for something, and trying to think, is this okay or is this too much?
Yeah. Because we don't want to burn out our volunteers.
Yeah. And then, like, I think of a lot of our other volunteers for all sorts of things. There's always the stereotype of the single, widowed, older church lady who serves with all her heart because husband is gone, but a passion to care for the other is still there. and they
Mm-hmm.
just find a new avenue for it. And I think it's often beautifully, beautifully done. Becomes the butt of some jokes, but more often than not, I think a healthy and beautiful way for those people to continue to serve. Um, I've seen so many instances in families' lives where like an older family member needs care, needs extra attention, and the single family member is the one that steps up to do it because they're not on grandma or grandpa duty or mom or dad duty, and like they have the time to help. Um, and that's like maybe God was prepping them for that. Um,
And you might be listening, if you're a single person listening to this, you're like, so single people are like just a workforce for the church. I
no,
mean, well, hold on. In some ways, yes, because we're all called to that.
yeah, it's true.
We are all of us called to be servants wherever we are. It's when you have a family, your servanthood is to the church and to your family. Whereas if you are single, you can more universally serve the church. And it doesn't have to be the church. It can be a volunteer organization. It can be at your work where you go out of your way to make your coworkers' lives easier. It can be to your friends. Like, you have a bunch of different vocations too, and you can serve in all of them. So we're not like, it's not like, oh, I love how much I can rely on my single volunteers, although there's some truth to that. It's, as a disciple, we serve. And as a single disciple, you're splitting the pie fewer different ways. In did I phrase that right? Yes.
Yeah,
In your
yeah,
service.
yeah. And
So,
like to my perspective too, it's just like sometimes God keeps people single because he knows at some point he's going to have a unique and special calling on their life that he needs them ready for. And like I've heard a number of people who, you know, single in their 60s, maybe childless, maybe kids have moved out and, you know, wife is passed or moved on or something. They're like, I didn't get it, but now I see that God was preparing me for something. Right? And one, I appreciate the humility to be able to like recognize that. But two, I think that also just like reinforces how much we overlook the beauty and the freedom that having that kind of a life can bring you. And let me bring up another example. This one's less history and more modern. Um, we have a wonderful friend and colleague in the ministry who we refer to as the Right Reverend Father Ted. Um, other
I mean, you
otherwise,
do. I just call him Padre.
um, multiple time guest on this show.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think he's been on at least twice to talk about various things. Pastor Bill Reedy has been through the absolute ringer in his life and his ministry, but like him being a single adult on September 11th, 2001 meant that he could serve as a chaplain to families who were coming to see and identify the remains of their loved ones who were killed in the Twin Towers. His identity as a single man meant that he could become a recruiter for the seminary, travel the country, like not miss much of anything in St. Louis. I'm guessing he had house plants, so other than watering his plants. And like I'm not gonna lie, like the warm invitation of Father Ted is a not insignificant part of why I went to seminary. His singleness allowed him to have that kind of relationship with people. And now his singleness allows him to bounce all over the country, show up at congregations that need, Josh, how did you put it before? A holy whack with a 2x4?
Different context, but yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean, this is the congregational side rather than the pastoral side. But, like, he has the opportunity to travel the country. He's done vacancies in California and New York since he stepped away from the seminary. And in Iowa?
I think that's correct.
Yeah. So he's been basically everywhere. Just serving God's people, straighten them out, get them ready for the next guy. And he can bounce around all over the place and see all sorts of things and just enjoy the church and the creation that God has made, because that's the life he's able to live as a single guy. And I think God's using him in cool ways through that. So, yeah. Be like Bill. Maybe not completely like Bill, but...
Maybe not completely like Bill.
Bill. Like Bill.
Yeah. We had two priorities when we came into this episode. Have we covered both of them?
I think so.
It's okay to be single and how to serve. I do think it's also, because if you're single and you don't want to be, because there's some people who are perfectly happy being single their whole lives. Awesome. Cool. You might be listening to this and thinking that's not me, which is also totally fine. And I think we ought to acknowledge, especially for single young adults, it can be really hard. If your priority is, I want especially a faithful Christian spouse, because in a lot of churches, that's kind of a missing demographic.
Yeah.
And part of that is because so many people move around for college and then they kind of get unsettled and they're not necessarily tethered to a church. So where maybe once upon a time you could go to church and very well you could meet your spouse there, it's a lot harder in a lot of modern Christian congregations. But a lot of the places where especially media focus is for finding a spouse isn't necessarily the same place you would look if your priority is a Christian spouse. So, like, the bar and the club are probably not. If your goal is a Christian spouse and you want that faith to be a foundational piece of your relationship, I'm not saying it can't start in a bar or at a club, but, like, you're going for a different vibe usually.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely true.
So if you're like, well, how do I deal with that in a faithful way? I mean, I don't have a ton of advice for you because I didn't date around a lot. So I don't have a lot of practical wisdom for you. What I would say is pray about it. And when God gets you there, he'll get you there. And like we said earlier, don't make an idol out of it. And then the other thing is, the way I met Chris was just like living my life in the spaces that I live my life, and coming across people in that organic way. So, because I met Chris playing intramural soccer at a club soccer place in St. Louis. I did not go there to meet girl. I went to play soccer, and Chris was also on the team. So I'm not saying go join a soccer team. I'm saying go do the stuff that you enjoy doing. And what you're going to do is you're in that process, you're going to meet people who enjoy the same things you do.
Yeah.
And if your priority, as it should be, is to live as a disciple, the things you enjoy doing are going to reflect that, or at very least aren't going to contradict that. And you can start to build those relationships. You can start to meet people who have those common interests, and you can find out. So, but again, without making an idol out of your pursuit for a relationship. For all the theological reasons, but also desperation is not a good look on anybody. So yeah,
I would encourage people who are single to pursue community over intimate relationship. And if you pursue community, like in your church is great, but also within the broader community as well. Because in those relationships, you will have the opportunity to be discipled and disciple others. And that's also just like, you can't meet, if God does have a spouse lined up for you, you can't meet them. I mean, you can, but not really. It's not as effective to meet them from your couch. Josh can speak to the fact that dating apps are
not great for you.
Yeah. How was I going to describe them? One level above hell. I know it's a mess. So get out, meet real people, be human, live for relationship. Not for intimate relationship, but for community, and God will do what God's going to do.
Yeah. And we acknowledge like that advice sounds trite. And if you're struggling with your singleness, I understand how frustrating it can be to hear that.
Paul does too. But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry.
Yeah. So like, hear all this, don't make an idol out of it, but not to the point where like you're surrender, like you're so passive that you're not ever gonna quote unquote shoot your shot. So
yeah,
find your balance. Enjoy the perks that come with being single while you got it. All I'm saying, and this wasn't, getting married didn't change this. Having kids kind of changed this. All I'm saying is when I was single, my KD was a lot higher. Is all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I was much better at Destiny 2 when I was single. I was much better at Call of Duty before I had kids. So enjoy the single life while God's got you in that phase of life.
There's a lot of beauty and good there.
He's not talking about Call of Duty. He's talking about singleness. There is not a lot of beauty and good in Call of Duty chat lobbies.
Yeah.
There's mostly just degeneracy and how can I spell this so I communicate the thing I want to without flagging?
Whatever you do, don't look up 8-year-olds Call
Eat
chat. You will
question
why God hasn't brought the end of days yet.
Oh, what a time.
Josh, empty netters?
Empty netters? I'm going to go with the simple one. It's okay to be single. Don't stress about it. Enjoy it while you're there.
Can I edit that?
Sure.
It's good to be single.
I can rock with that. Yeah.
In the Genesis 1 sense. It is good, holy, pleasing, in the same sense that it is to be anything else under God's, anything else faithfully under God's rule. It's good. Just be there. Live it up. I think my takeaway would be enjoy the freedom. Single people throughout Christian history have been shining examples of what it looks like to live out Christian freedom. So if you're in that stage of life right now, just do it. rock that freedom. Do it for Christ and enjoy it.
Yes, sir. All right. With all that being said, brothers and sisters, go in peace. Serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Thank you for listening in to this episode of Cross-Checking, a ministry of Hope and Good Shepherd Lutheran Churches, where we strive to deepen your understanding of the faith and help apply it to daily life. If this podcast is helpful to you, rate the podcast, subscribe to us on your favorite platform, and share it with others who might also gain something from it.